Hi everyone, I hope you're all keeping well. Thanks for joining our FlowForma's exclusive virtual workshop today, where you'll see a significant business process digitized in under an hour. My name is Conor McGrath. I'm Digital Marketing Executive here at FlowForma, and I'll be your host for today's workshop session. And we're really excited about this one today. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So today I am delighted to be joined by my colleagues, David Shanley, who's product specialist at FlowForma, and Stewart Miller, who's territory manager here at FlowForma too. Hi guys, thanks very much for joining me today.
Thanks, Conor.
So here at FlowForma, we want to give our audience today an insight into how easy it can be to use the FlowForma Process Automation tool. It allows you to digitize your processes quickly, gain rapid adoption, and get an early return on your investment as well. And so during today's workshop, we ask our audience again to be as interactive as possible. So please take part in some polls that we have as well throughout. And David and Stuart will be developing a process plan as well. So make sure to get your questions in for that too. And we'll hope that David and Stuart can answer some of those great questions coming in whilst building out today as well. So with that in mind, having done all the introductories, let's find out where today's audience is logging in from. So I'm just going to pull up a quick poll here today and see where everyone's dialing in from. So I might just leave that up there for maybe 10 seconds or so and just give you all a chance to submit your votes. So already I can see it's a very mixed audience, and we're delighted to have you all here today. So I might just close that one very, very quickly, and maybe 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'll just close that one for you. But it's nice to have you all here today, and let's just see there, it's nice to have such a diverse mix again. So warm welcome to you all, and thanks very much for taking the time out to join us today as well. So okay, so the results are in. As you know, before today, we had asked you all what process you would like to see automated today during this workshop session. And as you can see here, we had a clear winner with 33% of the votes. And today we're going to see an onboarding process being automated during the workshop today. So my next question for you now is, what challenges are you facing with this process? And that's another poll I'm just going to pull up here really quickly for you as well and see what challenges that you're facing at the moment.
Are you surprised, Stuart, that onboarding came in as the winner?
I'm not, Dave. I'm not. It's not industry specific. It applies to all organizations, but what it is, I think we all do onboarding processes, and we all experience that it's quite a painful process. There's a lot of traffic going on, but it's an important one. If you think about all the emails that are going back and forth, the documents, approvals, and in some cases, multiple approvals. So, and signing of documents as well, and the data collection, the list is endless. And everybody's got their different ways of doing it. So it is extremely time consuming. So if organizations can successfully digitize that process, it is a big win for them. And it is one of the most common. So no, I'm not surprised. There's a lot of work in there for you though.
Yep, there's a bit. And why wouldn't organizations just use pre-existing systems to build out their onboarding process?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's multiple answers to that question, but there's some common ones. I would say it revolves around the inflexibility of the HR systems that they've got. You know, everybody, as I've said, has got their own way of doing these processes cross-functionally to bring somebody into the business. So there is a lot of flexibility that's needed. And adding an HR module that's part of an H system can be expensive. It can also be time consuming. It can take up to 6 months to do. And once they've done that investment, they can't reuse the investment. Can't go on. You know, the ROI stands on its own. But so in comparison with FlowForma, which is absolutely, you'll see today, is 100% no code. What our customers do is they start with just one process, but they go on to then digitize many, many more with the same investment, because part of our commercial model is unlimited processes. So it's not a reinvestment on a reinvestment. This is unlimited process across the piece. So what our customers do is they actually take FlowForma and they put it into all four corners of the business. And another real beauty of it is that it's business owners. Because of the no-code aspect, you don't need to be an IT guru, you don't need to be a developer, you can be a business owner. So that it's a lot quicker, Dave, as you know, which makes organizations a lot more agile. And therefore, in comparison to adding something onto an existing HR system, for example, it's a far more attractive ROI. What springs to mind is one of our customers, Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine. They started with one process, and then they've gone on to digitize over 200 themselves. So we don't exactly know everything that they've done. So the power of FlowForma is very much in a lot more flexibility to do it the way you want it to, a lot more agility, and therefore the cost of ownership is just not comparable. So really good question. I hope that answers it. But enough chat, Dave. Shall we get on with this?
Let's.
Good luck. I'm really excited to see how this goes, by the way.
Likewise. Likewise.
I'm going to hand you over now to Dave, and Stewart, who are going to take center stage on this one.
Okay, guys, can you see my screen?
We can.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so the process we're building out is going to be the onboarding process. What you're looking at here at the moment is the dashboard of the FlowForma app in Office 365. The process we're going to be building out is an onboarding process. Now, the tile I'm going to click on here, the onboarding tile, is going to initiate that process. It's simply a URL, a link. How you surface this up is entirely up to yourself, how you bring this up for end users. It could be a link on your intranet. It could be a tile in your dashboard on your intranet. It could be an icon on your desktop, link in an email. That's entirely up to you. So I'm going to click on the tile here to open up the process. And it's going to open up on the first step of the form. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the form here, the layout of the form, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're going to build here. So the header portion up here at the top is customizable, so you can take in your logo up here at the top. You can also take data captured in the form and represent that up in the header portion as well, should you wish all users to have visibility of it. Sitting directly underneath that, we have a gray step bar, within which you can see the currently engaging step is in white. So when we talk about steps, it's the same as a task. It's a block of content you can attribute to a person or to a group of people. To currently engage the step is always in white. We're on our initial step here, but I can see as well as a user, I can see subsequent steps here, moving sequentially across to manager approval. And then I can see these three steps here, sign off docs, IT prep, and security access. Those step boxes are slightly smaller. The reason being is that those three steps are engageable in parallel. They run concurrently. And then we have a final prepare welcome pack. So let's go through the form as an end user. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening under the hood. So where are the rules firing as we're progressing through the form? And then we're going to build it from scratch again.
Wow,
so we're going to
there's a lot in there, Dave. There is.
So I will be going at a reasonable pace through this, and it will be a lot to take on board. But what I hope people will come away from here is the speed at which you can build. Also the fact that it is a 100% no-code solution. So you've got all the various different question types here that line up with your native SharePoint data types. We have our own custom question types too. When I talk about a question, you may know it also as a field. So for example, primary language here is a SharePoint list lookup. We're looking up a single column list called primary language. And we've got a business rule firing here. So if I select other as a primary language, it's going to ask me what that is. And that's called a question change rule. And the question change rule fires where the trigger question is. So when this question control or the question box gets updated by the user, that's a trigger point. So question change rules are used a lot to determine the path the user takes whilst they're on the step. So you might have a block of questions hidden by default, and then you'll decide to make them visible. So in this case here, if primary language equals other, I've got a hide show question rule that's going to show other. and I can put that in here.
Yep.
Email, confirm email. In this case here, because the email is critical, you're going to be communicating with this person. You want to make sure that the email that's input is the correct email address. So if I were to put in these here, and I were to try and click submit on my step, it's going to give me a validation error here. So we've got a data validation rule firing here. So if email is not equal to confirm email, you're not going to get to submit your step. You're going to have to go up and address the error. Job title, single line of text. Region. So region is a Sharepoint list lookup. It's a single column list, and we're looking up these specific regions here. Now, if I select EMEA, I'm going to use that value to filter a second list here and extract only work locations specific to EMEA. So we're cascading through list content here. So this is very, very useful. Managing, maintaining lists is very easy. The benefits of using them in a process like this is it allows you to channel how the user moves through the process.
Very good.
Helps reduce the likelihood of user error.
Mm-hmm.
So again, for example, if I were to go and select US and Canada, it's going to give me a different set of work locations. So we're cascading through. So again, I'll change my mind once more. I'm going to go back to EMEA. I get my work location is Dublin. Now I've got another list lookup here. It's just a single column list for departments. But the moment I select one here, it's going to go into this list here. And it's going to look and see what work location I selected and what department I selected. And it's going to filter and extract the manager. So if I go back in here and I select my department, the moment I do that, a get list data rule is going to fire. It's going to apply that filter, work location and department, to the list I've just shown you and pull in the appropriate manager. That's a get list data rule. So in terms of question change rules that are firing here, there's one here, a hide show question rule. There's a data validation rule here, and there's a get list data rule here. And those are question change rules. And you go to the trigger question and you apply your rule there. So outside of question change rules, you also have step level rules. So step level rules, a step completed rule fires when you click submit. You've committed to submitting the step. It's moving on to the next step should there be one. And step saving rules fire, for example, when you're clicking save. So when I click submit here, we're going to have a set of rules firing. The first one is going to assign the second step to my manager. And we're also going to send that individual an email. So on receipt of the email, the manager would have a link in the email and it would take them through, once they click on it, to their respective step here. And again, as you can see here contextually, I can see where I'm sitting within the actual process. I can see it's moved on to the second step.
Dave, we've got our first question in from Jessica. Thank you, Jessica, for the question. She's asking, can you use this on your mobile?
Yes, you can. So we have a mobile app for iOS and Android, and you don't have to render the process, the form build. It's automatically done for you, and it also has offline capabilities. So yes, in short.
So you can be part of the process no matter where you are, anywhere in the world at any time, yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your question, Jessica.
So on your second step here, the manager needs to determine whether or not they approve. Now I could take all the data captured on the initial step and push it through, or I could give the manager view permissions of the initial step. So if I click on it here, I could see what's been input.
Okay.
In this case here, I'm not happy and I want to actually not approve it. And again, a question change rule firing here. If approval is no, show comments. So I'm going to put in my comments here. Not very helpful comments, but I'm going to put those ones in. The moment I click submit here, because approval is no, we're going to have a step completed rule firing that's going to pass it back to the previous step.
Right.
If approval is no, pass it back to the previous step, a step completed rule. And we're also going to show comments that were previously hidden on the initial step, and we're going to embed these comments. And those business rules are firing the moment I click submit here. It's passing it back. And now we see manager's comments. And that's just a separator, a graphical representation, but we can see the manager's comments embedded here. So I can go in and I can make the appropriate change, resubmit my step. In this case here, the manager's happy, the change has been implemented, and they're going to say yes. And when they say yes and they click submit, it's going to move into the parallel set of steps. And again, these parallel steps can be engaged with by the various different parties concurrently. In my case here, I own all three, so I'm going to just move through each one individually here. So
we
have here the option to upload a file here. In this case here, I'm just going to take this Word document here. Please enter the induction meeting date, just a date and time question. Now, if I click on IT preparation, you'll see here we've got a new username, straightforward enough. Date the user account will be activated. And now we have a repeating table. So a repeating table is a tabular structure within the form. Each column in the table is its own unique sub-question. You can also apply business rules within the table too. Now this table is a dynamic table. The user can add as many rows as they wish and remove rows. So what we have here in our initial column here is a list lookup. So we're looking up computer accessories or computer technology. If I choose computer accessories, we're using that to filter a second list and only display items specific to computer accessories.
Okay, gotcha.
Again, very, very simple thing to set up. I mean, there's the list there. Very easy to set up, but very impactful when it comes to kind of end users engaging with the form and the overall end user experience. Put in
All
my
set up on
tag.
all set up on SharePoint.
All set up on SharePoint, all done, you know, in a matter of minutes.
Okay.
So again, I'm just going to add one more here.
Dave, it will have to be because you got less than an hour.
Oh yeah, better keep an eye on the clock here. So that's my IT prep step. Now we have a security access step as well. And this is going to be a different type of repeating table. You'll notice this one is dynamic. I can add rows or move rows. This one, security access here, is actually fixed. I'm taking a single column list and I'm mapping it into my initial column in my table here. I'm removing the option to remove rows or add rows. So I got to go and engage with each of these. Once all these are done, when I click submit, it's going to move out of the parallel set of steps and it's going to move through to our final step, which is prepare welcome pack. And when I say yes to that and click submit, we're going to have a generate document rule fire, and that's going to generate a Word document. It's a rather meager looking welcome pack. I don't know if I'd work there, but you can see here it's populated the welcome pack with content from the form. So with FlowForma has a Word plugin that you install on your desktop version of Word. And once you have a document template, you load that into your document templates library. You then associate with a process. From that point onwards, you can use that then. So I can take this document template, which I've associated with the onboarding process, and I can pull tokens in from that process and populate it.
Right.
So for example, I can go in anywhere here, and I can just cursor position on my document, double click, and bring in my answer here. Now what I have in place here as well is, it is a huge time saver.
Yeah,
and now it's specifically for HR processes as well, where you've got contracts and all that as well. So maybe a word is changing in a paragraph, something as granular as that. You can apply rules here as well. So I've got a rule associated with this department title, department answer block of content here. And that rule, if I look at it, is saying display selected section when this condition is true. So all I'm doing is drilling down, and if it's equal to IT, then display that section. Now, if it's not equal to IT, what happens is that document will contract to reflect that. So you're always going to get a dynamically built document that reflects the instance in which it's generated. So I'm just going to close that.
We've got another question in. We have a little bit of a skeptic in our audience, Dave. But it's a great question. It is a great question. Andrew is asking, is this really 100% no code?
Yes, it is. So, I mean, the only way to show you that is to show you. So you'll see that now when we start our build.
Okay.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually dig in and start building from scratch. So I'm going to go in here into my admin section here. I'm going to go to create new process flow. And we're going to call this new onboarding to distinguish it from our old onboarding one there. Or mu onboarding. Now what I've done as well is I actually have a lot of the fields that I'm going to use here in a notepad, so I can copy paste them through, because I two-finger type or two-thumb type, so it will take ages if I was doing it this way. So what this opens up now for you is Flow Designer. So Flow Designer is a 3-in-1 toolkit. It combines forms, workflow, and document generation all in one single build interface. And that's really important. A lot of the tools that are out there use canvas-based technology. You might have your forms rendering components, and then you have to knit that together with a workflow component. The more complex the process, the more intricate that is, the more difficult it is to actually kind of manage and maintain. You're building from one single interface here. It's designed from the ground up for process owners to build with, and you'll see why now. So first thing I want to do here is add my steps to my process. So I'm going to add my steps here. So my first step is going to be new hire details. I'm just going to assign each step to myself for the time being, so we can move through very quickly in our prototype. Our second step is going to be manager approval. Again, I'll just assign it to myself. Now you'll see the option to assign here to a person. You can also assign to a Sharepoint group. And as you'll see now shortly, you can dynamically assign it as well using a step assign rule, which will override both those settings. We have our sign off of documents. So what I'm doing is layering it up here. We have our IT prep.
Okay. This all seems pretty straightforward, Dave.
Yeah, it is, Stewart. It is. Security access is next. I'm after getting varifocal glasses, Stewart, so bear with me.
you and me both, Dave.
It's my age. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to start adding our fields to each step. So we're going to go to our first step here. I'm going to go to add question. Now I can also reuse questions as well. So any questions created here get appended to a questions list. Same with steps. I can reuse steps as well. I can also make copies of steps and repurpose it for a specific need. So maybe you've got an approval step you want to reuse over and over again, you can do so. So I've got my requester. I've got all my question types here. They align with the native Sharepoint data types, and we have our own custom question types. There's a lot in here. I'm just going to slowly scroll through them. There's dynamic CRM lookups, SQL Server lookups, entity data management, repeating tables, digital signatures, wet signatures, barcodes. There's a lot in here.
And it's comprehensive, so, isn't it?
What you'll find though when you're building is like 80–90% of the time you're going to be using 3 or 4 question types over and over again. So what I'm going to use here is a person or group Sharepoint user. I can make questions mandatory, which means that the user can't submit a step unless they engage with the question. I'm going to set this to the current user. And now I'm going to start layering this up here. So we've got our first name. Our last name.
Okay. These are all the fields we saw before, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
And we've got our primary language. So primary language is going to be a Sharepoint list lookup. So it's going to be a lookup question type. So when I put this in here, I'm going to select lookup, which is a Sharepoint list lookup. The list I want to look up is called primary language.
Okay.
So let me just go and dig it out here. Should be living at this level here. There it is. And it's going to snap in for me. And it's a single column list. And we're looking up the initial column here.
Okay, makes sense.
So should other be chosen as a primary language, we need to capture what that is. So we're going to add a question for that. So what you're doing is you're going to put in all the questions you may or may not need. So let me just key this in. I'll leave it a single line of text. And we're going to have email and confirm email. I notice as well that this is the winning process. A lot of the processes that, came second, third, fourth place, they all have similar structures in the sense that you're going to have an initial step that's loaded up with data collation, and then you're going to have to go through certain gates or approvals, and it may pass back to a previous step, as it's going to do here in this case. So what you're going to see here can be applied to any process, essentially, irregardless of its complexity. You're going to see the same rules being used over and over again.
Okay, again, time saver.
Exactly. So next thing is the region. So region is a SharePoint list lookup as well. It's just a single column list. I'm going to select my lookup, and it is hopefully called region.
We've got loads and loads of questions coming in, Dave. I'm not sort of interrupting your flow, so we've got one here. We've got one here, and we'll come back to those that we're unable to answer.
Sure.
I think we've got over 200 attendees today, so it's quite a big number in the audience. We've got from Mikkel. Can external organizations be part of the process?
Yes, they can. So external organizations can engage either anonymously or using secure access, and that can be right throughout a process. So there's no overhead either as well if they're engaging anonymously, and you can have several different instances within the process where they can do so. So yes is the answer.
Okay, cool. I'm really sorry if we're not able to answer your direct questions, but we will answer them afterwards. We'll come back to you direct if we don't have enough time, but keep the questions coming in.
Okay, so we're on our work location lookup here. The list I want to look up here is going to be called region work location. 2-column list. We're going to filter for the chosen region. So if I scroll down, it's going to be region work location. This time the column we want to show is this one, and the filter we want to apply, enable filters, is where the region equals, in this instance, drilling down, equals the chosen region here. So that's the filter we're going to apply. And that's only going to show work locations associated with that specific region. We're going to have a department. That's going to be a lookup as well. The beauty of using lookups here, Stewart, is that these can be maintained by anybody on SharePoint. They don't have to go into the build and change the choices in a question type, for example.
Right. So it's all in one.
Yeah, and you make changes to your lists here. Any pre-existing forms, you automatically will reflect that change. So.
Okay. Well, makes sense to me. I'm not technical, as you know.
And we're going to go to department here for this one. And the last one we're going to have here is a manager. Second last, I should say. So the manager is going to be person or group, SharePoint user. So we want to be able to assign the second step to this individual here.
Yeah, as I thought, there is a lot going on in this, isn't there?
Yes, there is. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to apply get list data rule. So once we know the work location and we know the department, we're going to go into this list here and filter and pull through the appropriate manager. So if HR is chosen as department and the work location is Dublin, it's going to pull in this manager here. So my trigger point is here, and again, it's going to be a question change rule. So we're going to start with our question change rules now. So let's move up to the top here. So question change rules fire on the trigger question. So the requester, I'm going to select and make read only. First name, last name are fine. Primary language, we know if other is chosen, we're going to show other. So we're going to hide other by default. It may not be needed. Trigger point to determine whether it's required is here. If primary language equals other, show other. And that's a question change rule. So you go to your trigger question, you select it, go to your add rules. And you have all these rule categories available to you for question change rules. A lot of depth to the tool here. The reality is the ones you're going to use over and over again are workflow control rules and some data integration rules. That's what you're going to use the most for question change rules. But I'll just open it up here so you can get a sense as to the depth of functionality that you have here.
Yeah, it's very deep, isn't it?
It is. There's a lot here.
Don't worry, folks. There is training as part of our Sure Start implementation program, so you'll know what each one of these does.
Exactly. So here's our first trigger question here. Question change rule gets applied here. If primary language equals other, show other. Go to my add rules. It's a hide show question rule. And again, it's simple business logic. There's no coding. So if I go and edit my conditions and I drill down, all I need to do is drill down and select if primary language equals, in this instance, other.
Right.
If that condition is fulfilled, and I can have condition combinations, group conditions, and so on as well, but in reality, they're going to look a lot like this. If primary language equals other, if that condition is fulfilled, I want to show, again, drilling down, I want to show other. And again, I can have blocks of actions. I can be showing some questions, hiding others, and so on, disabling and enabling question controls. So that's my business rule in place. If I move down to here, confirm email, I want to check, I'm going to add a rule here, data validation rule. So if email is not equal to confirm email, don't let the user submit the step. So I'm going to my trigger question, add rules, a data integration rule this time, and it's a data validation rule. And my condition in this instance is, drilling down, if email is not equal to confirm email.
Okay.
Check email with an exclamation mark. So that means if the user tries to submit and the emails don't match, they won't be allowed. Moving through here, we've got our cascading list lookups here. Once we get to this point here, the department is chosen. We have enough information then to go in and extract the manager. We have the work location, we have the department, and we now know the manager. So our trigger point is here. Again, question change rule. This time it's a get list data rule. The list I want to extract the information from is my department work location manager.
Mm-hmm.
The filter I want to apply is where the department equals the chosen department in my lookup, and the work location equals the chosen work location from my work location list lookup question. And then I want to pull through from the manager list field and map into my manager here. And there's no condition in this instance. I want this rule to fire each and every time. And again, because the system is pulling that through, I'm going to make that read only. Now, what you could use here as well is you can use get user profile rules as well. If your user profile app is in good nick, you can do that. You can pull information through as well if it lives there. We're just using a Sharepoint list in this instance. What I can also do here at this point is I can go in and I can do a test form here and take a look at what I've been working on. So you'll see here primary language, if other is chosen. It's now asking me what that is. I'm going through my cascading list lookups here.
You've done that so quickly.
And there's my manager. And let's see if this one is, I don't think it'll actually do this one for me. Maybe it will. Yeah, it does. Okay, brilliant. So that's my data validation as well. That's how quickly you can put it together, Stewart. So I'm going to close this.
Dave, how are we doing for time? Have we got
yeah, we're
90,
good. We're good.
90 seconds that you can do? I've just got a question here that's important about the questions, and I'm going to answer this myself, Dave. So
okay,
how are
well,
these
I keep
questions
building here.
Yeah, you keep building. So how are these questions and their flow agreed to? How are these questions? What if the person choosing this flow has not been consulted? Well, that can happen, but it shouldn't. And what is the approval process? So basically, no, everybody should be involved in the collaborative process and be involved in putting the process flow together and what the design is going to be. But you can also use a module which is called governance, which actually controls the release of the processes into the organization.
Correct.
Because if you didn't have those controls, you could really, just be releasing processes willy-nilly. So you've got to put some cadence around it, and the governance module allows you to do that. Sorry, Dave, I just thought it was an important one to answer.
Worries. Okay, so on approval here, if approval is no, I'm going to show comments. So I'm going to my trigger question on the manager approval step. It's a hide show question rule. I'm going to edit my conditions. I'm going to drill down into my second step this time. If approval equals no. I'm simply keying it in. If approval equals no, show comments. And at step level, on the new hire details, I'm going to do a step assign rule. And I'm going to assign the second step to a person defined in the question. And that person is going to be the manager. I'm also going to send that individual an email. I can use a pre-existing one, or I can create one from scratch, which is what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to say OB approval. Short and sweet. It'll be the title. So with this email here, I can customize it here. I can pull tokens in from the form. So I can pull in, for example, the manager's name. Most important thing to have here is a link to the form. Just bear with me a second here. And we'll get our form link here. That's my email template. So I'm sending that on completion of the first step. I'm at first step level. The event is completing. It could be starting or saving either. Who am I sending it to? It's a person defined in a question. That person is my manager. Okay. I can also attach documents here. I can send in a predefined dates and so on as well. So you can use that then to kind of tie in with SLAs, times to completion and so on. On the second step, I'm going to add a passback rule. So if approval is no, pass it back to the previous step. So my condition in this instance is going to be, again, drilling down into my second step, if approval equals no, again, simple business logic, pass it back, only one step to pass it back to. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to add a hide show question rule. And I am going to, let me just check here, did I add those? Okay, I'm going to add comments. Again, it's all about agile building. I'm going to add comments here as well.
Okay.
To the first step. These are going to be the manager's comments. So it's no big deal.
So you're not a robot then?
No, I'm not. So manager's comments, I might sound like one sometimes. Manager's comments, multiple lines of text. And I'm going to have that hidden and read only on the initial step. Moving on to my second step again, hide show question. So we know if it passes back to the first step, we want to be able to see the manager's comments. So edit conditions. And you'll start to see a rhythm to this, how you actually build this out, and a pattern to it. If approval equals no, if that condition is met, I want to show on the first step the manager's comments that we've hidden by default. And the last thing I want to do here is copy the comments back. So I'm going to use a set question value rule, and I'm going to copy the comments back to the first step from, and there's a lot more I can do here, from the manager step here.
Okay, that makes sense.
So now we have that workflow built into it here. So we know now that on the completion of the first step, it's going to be assigned to the manager. The manager get an email. If the manager doesn't approve, it gets passed back. You can always see contextually where your rules sit as well, you'll notice. So if I click step level here, I can see my rules. I can expand it out. I can edit it from here. So you can see where everything sits and why. If I select this question here, I can see there's a rule here. So you've always got context. You can see through the shape of the build here where your rules sit and why. So I'm going to move through to my sign off of documents next. And we're going to have just a file upload here first.
How are we doing for time? Okay.
Yeah, we're okay.
Okay, cool.
And we're going to have just an induction date here as well. So I'm just adding a few fields here. It's going to be a date and time. I'll just go for date only. Moving through to IT prep, we're going to have our new username. So again, I'm just simply selecting the step, go to add questions, and I can just pop it in here. We'll leave it single line of text. Date the user account will be activated. We'll capture that too. Date and time. And now we're through to our repeating table. So we've got our equipment list repeating table. And in this table, each column is its own unique sub-question. We're not going to have fixed row, hide remove row button. So my first sub-question is going to be equipment. which is going to be a Sharepoint list lookup. Again, we're putting that structure in place, ensuring the user is taking the right kind of path through the process. The list I want to extract my information from is called equipment.
Okay.
I'm just going to dig that out here now. Now I just need to save my progress here before I can use that as a filter. So I'm going to go out and come back in again here very quickly. Next thing we want to do is we want to find out the item. So the item is going to be a filter. It's going to be a cascading list lookup. We only want to see items specific to the chosen equipment category. And that will be a list lookup again. List is going to be called equipment item. We're looking up the item column this time. The filter we're going to apply is where equipment equals our chosen equipment in our first column. Then we just want to get our asset tag. So you might have more, you might, for example, use a get list data rule here as well. Maybe you want to have an item description. You could use a get list data rule. You could pull that through as well into the next column in your table if you wanted to. So you can have business logic firing within the table as well. And again, anything that kind of makes it very clear to the end user how they're meant to engage with the process is obviously going to be of benefit to everyone concerned. And we're going to have installation required. That's going to be a yes, no.
Okay.
And then we're going to move through to our security access.
Sounds to me as if the final straight is looming.
Looming, I wouldn't use the word looming, but yeah, I guess it is. Security access sounds rather ominous. So security access, that's going to be a repeating table as well. Now, the only thing with this is that it's going to be fixed. So it's going to be a repeating table. This time we're going to have fixed rows, hide remove row button, and we're going to have an area column, and we're going to pull that data through from an area list. And then we're just going to have an access granted checkbox column to the right of that. I'll make that a choice. I'll make it a checkbox. Just to put in yes. So what we're going to do here is that list needs to be populated. It's a fixed list, so it's step level. I'm going to use a rule, a get list data rule, which you've seen me use before. Only this time it's going to be a step started rule. A list I want to look at is my area list, and I want to pull through the content from the initial column. There's only one column, and map it into my first column in my table. So I'm going to go and grab it here. There it is. I don't need to apply a filter. I'm mapping it to a repeating table. It's a security access table. I'm overwriting, and it's just area to area. And because I'm pulling that through from a list, I'm going to make the area column in my table read only.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah.
Moving through to prepare a welcome pack. This is just very straightforward. This one, I'm just going to have induction training facilities booked. Make that a yes, no. Details of induction training venue as well. So the document template you saw earlier on was from the previous build. So you'd use a generate document rule here as well.
Okay.
And then you could send that to the individual that has been onboarded. And you could attach the welcome pack as a Word document, or you could convert it to a PDF.
Brilliant.
So let's just have a look at what we have here very quickly. There it is, new onboarding. So we know all this works. So I'll just push on to the second step here. Let me just go and just do this piece here. True to our second step, question change rule here. If approval is no, show comments. If I say no to that, and I click submit, it's going to pass it back to the previous step.
Back.
And on the previous step, you'll see embedded here the manager's comments. I can make the appropriate change, push it on again. Now what I can do here is I can take the passback button out here too as well. That gives the user a lot of flexibility. If you want to restrict that and govern it with a business rule, you do it as a step completed rule on submit. This time if I say submit is yes, it's going to move through here. That's going to go through into my parallel set of steps. So I haven't done these in parallel. That's the last thing I need to do, but you'll see all of the functionality in place here. I'll just show you quickly how to put them in parallel. So here's our security access, and then we're through to prepare a welcome pack. So what I'm going to do is let me just close that out. Everything's working as it should. I'm going to go back into edit my existing process. And if I want to make them into parallel, those 3 steps.
Okay, so if it doesn't quite work as you want it to, you just go back and amend it.
That's it. Yeah, it's all about prototyping, being able to build using an agile tool. So I'm adding a parallel group, and I'm just going to call it OB for onboarding. Once I have the group in place, then these are the 3 steps I want to add to it. They've now been added. I want to just position that, left click and drag, and that is now in place as a parallel set. In terms of the range of functionality here, we're really scraping the surface here in terms of what this tool can do, this platform can do. So, for example, you can customize the look and feel of this too as well. So if I want, there's our parallel steps in place here. If I wanted to customize that, I can go in here and I can go into Visual Form Designer, and that's going to give me the ability to go in and change the coloring for my step boxes, my step bar, and so on, my step font color. I can do all that from here. I can pull my logo in here, etc. as well. What's also very useful here as well is Visual Flow Designer. So again, if you wanted to use this as a canvas to start your initial conversation with your stakeholders around how to build, you can actually start your build from here, publish it to Flow Designer, continue on from there. Beauty of this is that this can then be used as well as part of your compliance and auditing, etc. as well. So you can have a Word document generated that captures this process build at a moment in time with this flow diagram representation, and then all of the steps outlined, questions, business rules in a Word document.
I'm glad you showed that. That was one of the questions that came through.
Oh, very good. It's very good. I'm obviously psychic. So that's good. Now, as well, just to give you a sense as well, Stewart, as to what else is available here. This isn't just about, it's not just about the ease at which you can build, it's also the emphasis that we place on managing the forms that are spun out from this. It's no good in having an agile tool if it's very difficult to manage and maintain the processes. So there's a couple of things that I want to show you here very quickly. Work items.
You built that process in 30 minutes, didn't you?
Yeah, give or take. Work items. Work items allows you to automatically reassign work items to predefined individual or individuals after an elapsed period of time. So you can actually determine the maximum number of forms any one individual should have on their desk. Should that be exceeded, it gets reassigned to the next available individual. And that can be, depending on how critical the process is, it can be days, hours, or on a predefined date. Also the sending of alerts. You also have process performance here as well, which gives you a visual representation of how all the processes, all the forms are performing relative to predefined SLAs. So you can go in as administrator, you can drill down, you can take a look at what's sitting where, what's delayed, what's on time. You can go in and reassign it to somebody else or assign it to yourself to free up those bottlenecks. So it's not just about the ease at which you can build, it's the emphasis we place on managing these forms once they're built, being able to kind of refine SLAs if they're too restrictive and so on. So having that visibility. And then that extends all the way across to IT's level of governance as well. So using the governance hub, it's the ability to go in and provision environments, sandbox, UAT, production, decide who has access to what, decide what processes get promoted from one environment through to another. IT have that appropriate level of governance, but it's a lighter touch. It's giving the business owners the ownership of process building, but giving IT the appropriate level of governance over that process as well.
Very good.
Last thing I just want to mention very quickly, I know I'm kind of plowing through stuff here, is, again, as I mentioned, you were looking at the process there inside in the app. This is an example of just a suite of construction accelerators that are coming out shortly. So these are all pre-built processes that will be in place for you to use and repurpose as and how you see fit. You'll see here as well, this is probably closer to what a dashboard would actually look like. You'll see the tiles here, the SharePoint team site. I've got my forms away to my input here. But what I also have here as well as built in is the ability to, using our execute SQL store procedure rules, I can take the data captured in the process, push it through the SQL server, pull it back in here in this instance into a Power BI tabular report.
Very good, Dave. Well done. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
You made it. Look, the onboarding was always going to be the busiest option. So look, it's important to say that for those who didn't choose the onboarding, don't be disappointed. I hope there was value in that. If you want a one-to-one to specifically discuss your challenges and processes, then we'd be delighted to talk to you directly on that. And Connor will just, when he's wrapping up, we'll go through the contact details there. One final question before I hand over to Connor. There's an awful lot of questions that didn't manage to get to, but there's one here which I'll take. What training is provided? I think you've probably got a wide range of knowledge, experience in terms of the audience, Dave. So for the less experienced, you went through that very proficiently, but I think this is where this question is: what training is provided? I think it's a great question. Some of you, some of you may be in awe. I certainly was in awe of you, Dave, of what you went through. But for those people who are going, I didn't quite understand that, don't worry. Training is supplied as standard part of our Sure Start implementation process. So, and it's an integral part of that implementation progress, because what we want our customers to be is like Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine and very self-sufficient. So after that training, our customers are extremely confident.
Just one through there as well, Stewart, sorry to cut across you, just see it here. How do you enter the FlowForma lists on SharePoint? So again, I have these positioned in this instance here, just in this subsite here. If you've worked with Excel, it's very easy to work with lists. You just go into the cells here in each column and you can edit them. You can drag and copy, etc. as well. So it's just a case of working with your native SharePoint lists if you do want to look them up. And if you have any experience with Excel, it'll come to you very easily. And indeed, you can also migrate, Excel structures and data across into SharePoint lists.
Okay, Connor, back to you to wrap up.
Wow, that was really impressive, guys. Well done.
Yeah, well done, Dave.
Thanks.
And I know we've had a lot of questions coming in, as Stuart mentioned as well, on the Q&A box, and it's great to get those and some nice feedback as well on the build as well. So I know Mark had a nice comment there, just saying that he's looking forward to seeing the recording, as he's a bit quick, but I understand that there's quite a lot to cover off in that as well. So the recording will be available for everyone afterwards, just as a reminder for everyone there. But geez, well done, guys. It was really impressive. And now that I haven't seen a process being built out like that, I'm going to just pull up a very quick poll, find out what outcome is most important to you, and when it comes to digitizing your processes. And I feel that's obviously probably quite prevalent as well, really. And much like what Stuart said too, I wouldn't be disappointed if you hadn't voted for the onboarding process here today. I'm sure there's definitely some takeaways from seeing that build out as well, because there's quite a lot of duplication with other processes as well. So nice to see some feedback coming in that poll as well. I might just give you another few seconds on that one. 3, 2, 1 on that one, and I'll just close that up. I might just pull up the results as well. Maybe, guys, there's some feedback there that you'd like. So yeah, you can see that the ability to automate processes in-house is a clear challenge that people are facing from their onboarding process at the moment.
That's the number one reason why our customers choose FlowForma, isn't it, Connor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can also see there as well that speed and integration are also two key challenges as well that people are looking to overcome too. So it's I've definitely felt it was a prevalent question to ask at the end here today. So on that then, and before we wrap up, I should also mention then that we have a few outstanding questions. We might get to one or two just before we wrap up. So I know we say what we attempted to accomplish today. Anyway, we got that process built in under an hour, which is that's the be all and end all for us here today. We showed how fast it is to use, and I think everyone got a good glimpse as to how that no code functionality is key in our speed on that as well. So there is a few questions here, and we're just getting very close to time. So I'll just pose a couple of them for you. So Janet had asked earlier about integration with an existing HR system. Maybe Dave, you might be able to give some brief feedback on that.
Yeah, so if this is a cloud system and there's a connector on Azure Logic Apps, we can use FlowForma Connect to integration. You can interface with that from Flow Designer, so it's very straightforward. If that's not the case, maybe it's an on-premise system or whatever. Once there's REST APIs available, we can create a custom connector. So there's always a way. It's just about finding the most efficient, but there is out-of-the-box FlowForma Connect that allows you to integrate into other cloud systems.
Yeah, sure. So there's another question here asking, how soon could I see an ROI from implementing FlowForma? Maybe Stewart, you might be able to tell the audience a little bit, maybe about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, very quickly. I mean, we've got some customers who actually get a process up and running within 2 weeks. So you're experiencing that return very, very quickly as opposed to months. We've got one customer springs to mind. It's a large hospital here in Dublin. They digitized quite a lot of paper-based processes, 900,000 bits of paper. They were able to save 279,000 euros per annum.
Wow.
So, and we've got lots and lots of other cases like that. So if you want to know, just let us know and we'll have a chat with you.
Excellent. I might just pose one last quick question. Do you have any tips which can help us to prioritize which processes to automate? I suppose that's a really good question actually to ask us. It's finding that starting point, I suppose. Maybe Dave, you might be able to give some brief feedback on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends. There may be a very, very specific pain point that needs to be addressed immediately. That's obviously what you're going to go for. But if that's not the case, you might look for a quick win. So, what process being automated is going to impact the most people across your organization positively. That's always a good one. It gets people on board. It gains you traction internally, and you can scale up from there.
Sure. And like we mentioned as well, I know we're full out of time here, so any questions that we didn't get to, we'll definitely get them answered for you afterwards. And very quickly then, before we wrap up here today, I'm going to quickly bring up our last poll here today based on your experience here today. Maybe if you'd like to take a free trial of the FlowForma tool as well for 14 days, absolutely free. It's a great way of understanding and like what Dave mentioned earlier on about building and testing it out, I suppose, sort of trial and error, I guess really is, if you will. So I might just leave it up for another few seconds and I'll close off that poll. And thank you very much for taking part in our polls today. And another quick reminder as well then that you can book your one-to-one call with us at any kind of time, of course, or if you want to access that trial, you can do so at www.flowforma.com/trial. And our process experts will be on hand to steer you in whatever way your digitization project is going. So they're absolutely on hand to help out with that and any other questions or queries you may have on that as well. And just a reminder as well, at the end of this webinar, there's a very, very quick survey that will pop up. If you could just take maybe 1 minute to fill that out first, that'd be really great. And it'll help us in structuring these sort of events again in the future. But I hope you enjoyed today. It was definitely a race against time, I suppose, but we set out what we tried to do. So
never end
well
out.
done, guys. Thank you very much for your time today, and thanks everyone for your participation. And I hope you all enjoyed our workshop today. So have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much for joining. thank you, David and Stewart, and we'll see you again soon, hopefully. Thank you.
Cheers,
Thanks, everybody.
guys.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.